I'm not so sure that Derek Carr will be joining the team on the sideline. So we have to discuss this, and could kind of see the writing on the wall with Derek Carr after the terrible pick in Pittsburgh, but he has been benched, and it's going to be Stidham. We'll get to the adjustment on the number. What was your immediate reaction? Full disclosure, obviously your son is the offensive coordinator, but What was your reaction when they finally made the decision to bench Derek Carr?
I was surprised that they just didn't finish the season, but I understand why they did. There's too much money at stake. And I think once they made the decision that this isn't going to be a long-term affair, that they needed to kind of get themselves out of it as quickly as possible to not have any exposure. So let's go back to when McDaniels comes in, right? Coming off a playoff year, Carr played well, threw for 4,800 yards, played well. So you come in. Now, there's a lot of, I don't want to say disconnect. There's a lot of opinions on Carr throughout the league. Is he an elite player? Is he not? And so if McDaniels walks into the building and says, I want to get rid of Carr, I need a new quarterback, that's not a good look, right? That's what happened in Denver. Got rid of Jay Cutler, and all of a sudden everything went upside down. So they extend Carr's contract. They give him, basically say to Carr, this is a prove-it contract. We're not sure about you. You've had some good seasons, although you've only had 2 winning seasons in your career. You've not really been able to stay consistent. Every time the play breaks down, you haven't been able to make a lot of plays. But let's go into this with an open mind. We'll give you this money, and we'll see what happens. And as the season progressed, and you saw this unfold, whether it was the first game of the year against the Chargers, whether it was the second game of the year, where they can't make a play in the second half against the Cardinals, and then the Tennessee game, where throwing the ball in the end zone for a chance to can't make that play, and all of a sudden things start to unravel. And the more unraveling, I think they got to the decision. And Pittsburgh, to me, was the accumulation of it all. You have a chance to kind of keep the ball, 3rd and 5. You got an in-cut wide open to Darren Waller. You throw the ball to Mike Tomlin. Then you got to play. Then you got to play to Hunter Renfrow, and you throw it to the deep end. So I'm not saying those 2 plays caused it. I think those 2 plays were similar to a lot of other plays that caused that made the decision that there's no sense in going forward with this.
The particulars: Carr signed a 3-year, $121.5 million extension with the Raiders in April, which included a no-trade clause. Carr's entire 2023 salary, which is a little over $32 million, plus $7.5 million of the 2024 salary, is otherwise fully guaranteed for injury. So meaning if Carr is injured over the final 2 weeks, Las Vegas would be on the hook. So this is purposeful. They're going to sit him, prevent him from getting injured, and then we can reevaluate after the season. The no-trade clause in that extension is a big deal here.
Well, I mean, look, this was basically a deal that both sides said, okay, we don't know where we're going with this, right? We don't know where we're going. So what do you need to make yourself happy? Here's what we need to make ourselves happy. Like, I don't want you to trade me to someplace I don't want to go to. I don't want this contract to have to carry me through if I don't want to go to the team. And I think that's a fair concession the Raiders made. Because if Carr comes out and plays great, we're not having this conversation. If Carr makes about 10 or 12 throws that are better, think about this, Patrick. Carr's career, almost a 65% completion percentage. He ranks 30th in expected completions in the league. I mean, he's at the bottom, down by Baker Mayfield, down by a lot of quarterbacks that weren't completing passes. Davis Mills. I mean, he's down that low. I mean, Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers was at a 72%, completion percentage of attempts, of targets and completions. He's at 55 this year. Now, is that because McDaniels can't call plays? Is that because the offense is horrible? I don't know. I watched the tape. Like, I see guys open. I don't see the ball. I see Devontae Adams wide open for a first down. I see a pop fly down the middle of the field that's intercepted against the Rams. You decide.
So the number opened the 49ers at Vegas, as you know, opened 6, adjusted up to 10. Now we've seen a couple of shops come back to 9.5 with San Francisco laying it on the road and Jarrett Stidham in. Is that an overreaction as far as the adjustment?
Well, I mean, I thought it was light to begin with Carr at 6. When I first saw the Monday lines, I thought, wow, that's a little light. I mean, how are the Raiders going to block him? How are they going to handle the pressure? Now, I don't know how motivated San Francisco will be because I think that's a question. Do you really want to play Nick Bosa and Armstead in this game? Do you really want to play a lot of you pretty much have the third seed for sure. Can you get the second seed? I don't know. Maybe if Minnesota loses, you can, so you play this one. I'm sure they will. How much do you play McCaffrey? So I thought that 6 was almost like, do they think San Francisco's not going to play? I think 9's the number. I think it's more realistic. I had it at 8.7 on my power rankings, so I thought it was the better number. Look, I will say this, full disclosure, my son's the OC there at the Raiders. I'm not saying that the Raiders coaching staff is perfect. I'm just saying when you watch the tape, there are plays that make you believe they have to change direction.
So just to wrap up the Carr thing, taking a leave of absence to not become a distraction, what do you read into that? What is that?
Well, I mean, they're not going to play him, right? So they reached an agreement that they said, hey, look, we're not going to play you. And so there's no sense in faking this and having you on the sideline as the third. We don't want to humiliate you and make you the third quarterback. Right. Obviously, you're better than the backup quarterback Garber. So what? But we don't. So why would we do that? And I think it's kind of a mutual agreement by both that they said, okay, fine. I know I'm going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I mean, I think they genuinely like Derek Carr. Derek Carr's a great kid. There's nothing wrong with Derek Carr. It's performance-based. I mean, I think he would be the admit to say that he missed some throws this year. And can he get it back? Yeah, maybe he can. But I think as I stressed, when you watch the tape, anybody who's sitting there saying, what was fascinating to me when I was doing research on it this morning was as good as Carr played last year, his QBR rating this year is better than last year. I shook my head. How is that possible? He had a 56 QBR rating this year, 52 last year. Like I'm not saying they're good, but he was clearly a better player last year than he is this year. I mean, he threw for 4,800 yards. Now, his sack percentage was higher. His completion percentage was higher. One thing I thought that Gruden was able to do with Carr was get him to throw the ball down the field more. This year, he's back to 7.0 yards per attempt. He's not throwing it up the field.
I think you said something very interesting. When somebody struggles in athletics, we start to conflate that with their personality as well. So they start getting crushed as a person and not just a performer. And everybody loves Derek Carr. The reason he's not with the team is not because the head coach and the coaches and the team doesn't like him. I mean, he's a super likable guy. It's just his performance hasn't been up to par, and he's got to sit. That's the way it is. It's a tough business.
And they've got to make a decision. I mean, look, I think this. When you've had 2 winning seasons, we had I forget who it was. I think it was Mike Sando yesterday. I mean, I believe this is true, but Archie Manning actually had a better winning percentage than Derek Carr has in his career. So really? When you have an elite quarterback on your team, you really have a way to kind of hide and mask it. And Carr has done some of that this year. The reason they're in so many of these games is because he's made some plays, right? But the problem is when it comes down to it, when the play breaks down and the second play occurs, he hasn't been very good. And then when the game is on the line and to make a play, he hasn't been very good. So there's certainly a lot of plays you could say, man, that's a really good play by Carr. That's a hell of a throw by Carr. There's a lot of that. But at the point where the game is determined, those safe plays that determine the outcome of the game, if you're not making those, it's hard for you to say you're going to be a $40 million player.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.